You're watching News at Prime. Well, around about this time, on a Thursday, we bring you what is called Leadership Thursday. But tonight, we are making an exception. We're going to park Leadership Thursday because politics sometimes stands in the way of our country progressing. And so we thought it fit to bring you a conversation with the General Secretary of the SACP. So, the long-standing alliance between the ANC and the SACP could be in trouble. The South African Communist Party expressing its intention to run the 2026 local government elections alone or independent of the ANC. The tripartite alliance partner also preparing for its 5th Special National Congress. This is going to take place next week. SACP General Secretary Solly Mapaila sitting with me in studio tonight, and we will talk about the Special National Congress in a moment, General Secretary. But I'd like to start with what I call matters arising. Tabazimbi.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Some observers will say that the SACP, if it was indeed serious about contesting the 2026 elections, this would have been a great test run. Did you?
No, we worked together with the ANC on Tabazimbi. Of course, we have not left the alliance. We're still in the alliance.
So, wait a minute. You campaigned
Yes,
for the ANC,
for the ANC,
in Tabazimbi?
yes.
How does that make sense?
No, what do you mean, Cody? How's that supposed to be difficult? We're in alliance with the ANC. Electorally, we are participating through the ANC. Now, what we are taking to the Special National Congress, it's a decision of the Central Committee to the extent that the ANC or the alliance has failed to reconfigure itself. In other words, to change the manner in which it operates, where one party takes unilateral decisions that are binding to others, and yet it still calls itself to be an alliance.
Yeah.
So it is in this regard that in the context of the previous elections, we decided to say, given that we did not reconfigure as per the deadlines, because remember, we've been having this discussion for over 22 years, the reconfiguration of the alliance. So they can be more patient than that. So in the absence of this reconfiguration and also the threats that were there for the ANC to lose elections, particularly with capital entering the political space overtly or openly and funding all other parties, including creating new parties to contest the African National Congress, and later on former President Zuma establishing his own party. So we felt that it would be inappropriate at that time to weaken the liberation movement at this point in time, irrespective of the intransigence of the ANC leadership to embrace the renewal agenda through the configuration tool. So it was on that particular basis that we took equally a decision that, yes, in the absence of this reconfiguration, we will go for local government elections, but this one, we will do it together with the African National Congress. And I'm glad that in the Communist Party, this remained closely with the political leadership, even our district level leadership, because they were part and parcel of the team that took this decision. And it didn't leak out for almost a year. I don't know what kind of journalism we have in this country, that they can't pick up this.
It's not about us. This is not about us.
No. I'm just saying this should have been revealed. It's not a big issue for us because we've been debating this question.
No, you are diverting attention here, Mr. Mapaila. You are saying that you didn't want to weaken the ANC-led alliance in Tabazimbi by contesting this by-election alone. But
no, in the 2024 May general elections.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got you.
I've
got you. But isn't the state of the ANC telling anyway produced in these by-elections? Because, again, Tabazimbi is a hung council. Does that not tell you explicitly about what the general populace, the people of South Africa, are telling you, the ANC, and those, of course, that are led by it, including yourselves?
Yeah, of course. These are part of the central questions, issues on the table for discussion, which the ANC has ignored over the years. principally, the people are not necessarily attached to identity of parties. When they participate in the elections, they vote for their well-being. So their well-being have been affected terribly by the system of capitalism in this country pursued by government. For instance, we've had a government that imposed budget cuts through the provision of social services to the people, and yet that government is going to elections. So it's a recipe for disaster. So you can cut, for instance, funding for the police, funding for health, funding for education, funding for basic things like water and sanitation, and you generate a crisis on the ground and expect to win elections. But because capital has captured the strategic component inside the African National Congress, if you like, the middle strata component that is now the ruling team in the ANC, and its policy trajectory is guaranteed. So they don't care about the well-being of the working class. That's the reaction that we see in the context of elections. So it's a multiple other issues, but this is central to it. And also the general conduct of the leadership and perception about corruption. If people raise these questions, including the questions about unemployment, and we put proposals on the table, they were discarded in favor of the proposal by capital, and this is a consequence.
Perhaps the latter part is what is what's cutting the ANC's nose to spite its face when it comes to the electorate, because perhaps people have simply lost not only trust but patience with the party. And you say that very, very coincidentally, because the next question I wanted to ask of you is Thembi Simelane, the decision to simply swap her around with fellow cabinet colleague Mamoloko Kubai. A strong opinion is that the president should have simply fired her and allowed her to sort out her issues, which possibly are going to land her up in court at some point. Where does the SACP stand on her not being cut loose from cabinet?
Well, to start with, we're not consulted on this matter because of a number of issues on the table. So this was an inconsequential matter as the party. Ideally, it's a matter that we should discuss. Because
you're always consulted on cabinet reshuffles.
Yeah, of course, this is what I'm saying. But there were attempts, but because of pressing questions, this was a non-issue. We've got a serious problem with the current government of national unity. That's where we start. Because the trajectory continues. It doesn't matter how you put various forces inside the cabinet, for as long as the capacity of this cabinet cannot respond to the challenges of the poor on the ground. That's part of the bigger problem. So we felt that until we have had a sufficient discussion, in our last meeting, for instance, we could not agree on this matter. We agreed to differ.
Mr. Mapaila,
with the ANC in this regard.
I have to disagree with you. You can't say...
No, the point is that we're not consulted.
Mr. Mapaila, no. I have to stop you.
Yes, okay.
Do you know why? Because you represent what is called the governing alliance. You co-govern with the ANC. As a result, your people are in this cabinet. So you can't... Can I say
there's
this
unilateralism.
You're trying to minimize what is essentially astounding, the fact that you were not consulted on this, what is termed a cabinet reshuffle.
I'm not commenting on the merit of it or not, just the central question of consultation, precisely because of major differences on this question of government of national unity.
Wow. Yeah. Does this not, I'm moving on from this point, but I have to ask the question, does it not make a mockery of the long-vaunted ANC renewal? Simelane kept in cabinet, the loss of confidence from the people about what the ANC constantly does. It says one thing and does it takes a completely different action.
You see, Koli, if you have got a leadership that is unaccountable or that's accountable to itself, you are bound to have serious problems. You know, the general principle of the liberation forces on the concept of deployment is called, the truest one, is called deployment, accountability, and recall. So the accountability and recall aspect has been taken out to serve interests of factions. So we will enter into this space, all of us collectively, to say this comrade must be recalled or is not accountable enough, and the accountability structure must be different from the structure that ideally deployed that particular person, so that there's appropriate monitoring of cadres and their performance. So the lack of reconfiguration of the alliance and the affirmation of one single tendency inside the liberation movement, in this case a neoliberal tendency, disregard all of these things, does at its pleases, and it can shift people like pawns from one position to the other for as long as the general tendency is kept intact. And that's where the problem is. And in other countries, for instance, a matter of this nature, the president will not have a say. A party or a structure, for instance, it's a similar structure like what you call integrity committee in the ANC, in the party we call Central Ethics Commission, but the Congress, our Congress is discussing the discipline inspectorate. It will talk to the morality and discipline of a particular cadre and takes a decision and impose that decision on the Central Committee or the NEC. So in this case, it's not possible.
I'm fast running out of time, so I have to move on from this point. But finally, for the SACP, what should have happened to Thembi Simelane?
At the point that the serious allegations were raised, the NC should have asked her to step aside and deal with this matter appropriately, as it has happened with others. But we now also know, you know very well, the question of Zizikot and others. The NC step-aside policy has been weaponized, and it's also been used by factions as well to deal with the cadres that they don't like. So they throw allegation against you, you get charged, and there's no completion of your charge for 2-3 years, and sometimes after that you are not found guilty, and that's a problem. So the issue is that she should have been removed instant. But at play here is not whether the ANC is following the right procedure or not. It's the faction and at play. And that's what society is now judging the ANC on it through the vote.
Well, so it's easy then for me to conclude that you are concluding here tonight that President Ramaphosa leads a particular faction within the ANC.
No, don't conclude for me. Let me put it this way.
Okay.
There's a neoliberal tendency. There's a characterization by us, the Communist Party, neoliberal tendency running the African National Congress. And this tendency is so dominant and accountable to itself, it doesn't even see the wrongs that it is committing.
Is it fair for the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng to shoulder the blame of the poor performance in May, very quickly?
It's not a simple yes or no answer. It's an interrelated problem. In each area, you need to consider the general response of the leadership to that particular issue. For instance, in Gauteng, there was a massive response, even by government, on the general crisis, not caused by the Gauteng province, but by the national policy of neoliberalism. And if you look at the performance of Gauteng, for instance, whether it was about electrification of communities, somewhere without electricity for 6 years, and there was no funding for it, and people have been punished for it. The government went out of its way to put projects, programs, to electrify communities, the townships, to put water services and so forth, even roads. Yeah. So there's a different performances of Gauteng. Of course, Gauteng is smaller than KZN. Yeah. So the comrades in KZN faced a major challenge, particularly with a former president challenging the ANC in his, if you like, home province and his main support base. And I think there was just inappropriate strategy to respond to that.
Let's then talk about the National Congress, the upcoming Special National Congress of the SACP. At the core of this, what is it that you seek members of the SACP to resolve on with the various issues that we've spoken about? Because in a way, they are a microcosm of why the country is where it is right now.
The first task facing Congress is about economic realities facing our people. We want to resolve the immediate challenges facing our people, the poor, on the ground, and to carve out a program that can respond to that and create self-sustainable and reliable communities in the townships and the villages. And we've already started a project of this nature in different provinces. So we're trying to massify that particular project so that we don't keep on calling on government to do certain things when the people are dying on the ground with poverty and malnutrition. So we work with the people on the ground. So the strategic thing is the economic program. But of course, in dealing with that economic program, we don't disregard the fact that we have a government that is also it's accountable or supposed to be accountable to the people, and it's a democratic government established by sweat and blood of revolutionaries who fought for national liberation in this country. So we'll call on that particular government to bring in different economic policies. For instance, the change in the microeconomic policy strategy, so that we have the government that can reindustrialize our country and create quality work for the people, and including industrialization in the small towns, because now industrialization has been happening in few areas, the major metros, but disregarding the major various towns across the country.
I've run out of time, but here's a final one, and very quickly if you can. If the SACP is to be taken seriously by the electorate, there's a view that SACP leaders that are serving in the government of national unity should cease to do that, and perhaps then the general public will see the SACP in a different light. Are you willing to do that, if indeed you are to contest the 2026?
It's not a test, and it's not even supposed to be like that, because in any case, it's not as simple as that even, because of the dual membership component of this alliance, of the membership of the party and the ANC. But at the same time, for instance, I can tell you that one of our provinces took a decision over the weekend that once we affirm this position by the Special National Congress, they are leaving. And we said no. At the moment, no, because the idea is that we still retain the duality of the membership across the components of the alliance. We have not yet ended the alliance. We are reconfiguring the alliance.
So they said they were leaving the ANC or leaving government positions?
No, both, because those government positions, the SACP, and I think journalists have missed this point for decades, actually. We do not have even what the DA attempted to put on the table of so-called sealed agreement with the ANC throughout. We have never had a single cadre in government accounting directly to the SACP. We created a mechanism to engage with these cadres, all ministers, for instance, in government. Just like a couple of weeks, we had an extensive discussion with Minister Solly on the NHI. So no minister is an SACP minister. All of them go through the ticket of the African National Congress, implement policies of the African National Congress. The problem has been that the ANC's direction to these ministers, where it is supposed to be a collective direction, has been imposing neoliberal economic strategies, and they can't defy the party that sent them into government. That is why that concept of deployment, accountability, and recall has been violated in the manner that has been applied in the African National Congress, and in this case, even unilaterally. That's the tension point on the side of the alliance. But we are focusing on how to deal with the problems of the people.
Solly Mapaila, let me thank you very much for your time.